The reason it is, and I'm sure people of all different sports can relate to this, bodybuilding as well, you work so long and so hard preparing for this single day. So much work, so much time, and then the day kind of happens and it's done. I equate it to almost like post-Christmas letdown. So how do I deal with it? I try to remember that, one, there's going to be other races, but two, all the hard work was put in, and that's setting me up for future success, not just that one race, whether it went well or went poorly. And then I personally do really dumb things. I always get my nails painted after races. I always get my hair cut. I set up a dinner date with my husband, and I just do things that I love doing besides triathlon, sort of for the week after, just to kind of deal with the blues and recenter myself. Hey, my name is Alice Alberts. I'm a Raw and Revive athlete. I am a professional triathlete, 2 times Ironman champion. Welcome to Raw Truth.
Okay, so we'll just start out with details about a triathlon. Someone asked, how does a triathlon work? Transition areas, what to do, not to do.
Okay, how does a triathlon work? Triathlon is swimming, then biking, then running. Transition is going from swimming to biking. That's called transition 1 or T1. And then transition 2 is going from biking to running. What not to do in transition? I would say take too long, because that is part of the race. It's part of the time. And then what is a triathlon? Really, there's so many different distances. So there's a sprint triathlon, which is short, an Olympic, 70.3, and then an Ironman, which is the longest, which is what I race.
Someone asked, what is your Ironman nutrition strategy?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I would say the week leading into the race, I'm doing a bit more carbs, just kind of getting the body ready to race. And then during the race, I take a gel 15 minutes before I swim. And then during the bike, I try to aim for about 105 grams of carbs per hour. Sources are currently varying because I'm toying with things to be able to skip something called bike special needs, which is halfway through the bike, too much detail. And then on the run, I aim for about 80 to 90 grams of carbs per hour. I get that from what's on course, so that's Gatorade and Morton gels.
What does preparation for a triathlon look like?
Ooh, prep for a triathlon, I guess that's different for everyone and what kind of triathlon you're doing. So like I was saying earlier, sprint triathlon is shorter, so you probably don't need to train as much or have not only as much volume, but each session doesn't need to be as long. I do an Ironman, which is a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike, and then a marathon. So training is a lot of hours and a lot of volume. Me personally, I swim about 5 to 6 times a week. I bike about 5 times a week, and I run 4 to 5 times a week. Yeah, so a lot.
How many energy gels does it take to achieve superhero status in a triathlon?
I don't know if I've ever achieved superhero status, so I don't know the answer to that one yet, but a lot.
Being a 2-time Ironman champion, do you practice your victory dance for the finish line, or is it just like a spontaneous euphoria?
Total spontaneous euphoria. I will say my first win, I was so shocked that I was winning, or that I was gonna win, that I did not enjoy it at all, because I was just convinced I was gonna be caught. And so I was literally sprinting up into the finish line, even though I was 6 minutes ahead of the person behind me. So it didn't really kick in until after I crossed the finish line. And then my second victory, I actually cried the whole finishing shoot because I was so excited. So I'm not very good at a victory dance, but hopefully there'll be a third and I can practice.
What strategies do you employ for recovery to ensure optimal performance and prevent injuries?
Yeah, recovery is so huge. And actually one of the things that I've noticed since leaving my full-time job, I train full-time now, has actually allowed me to perform better. Not only being able to train more, but really being able to recover more so that I can then train better when I am training. The number one thing is sleep, really. So I try to make sure I get 8 hours a night, sometimes even 9 if I'm lucky. Other things, and you can call this recovery, is just fueling correctly between all of my training sessions. I'm training multiple times a day, so getting enough food in me, carb and protein, to allow me to recover and get ready for the next session is huge. And then typical things people do. I get a massage maybe every other week, and I use massage guns, and I use compression boots. I love the sauna. Yeah, I'll do it all, but really it's sleep.
Someone asks, how was your transition from quitting your job to just training full time? Like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, that was honestly pretty tough. I was a primary care nurse practitioner, so long hours, seeing patients all day, and during that time I was training too. So those were some jam-packed days, and then I kind of went to having a little more freedom in my day, and not having that other distraction. I will say during that time I started coaching, which I absolutely love as well. I get a lot of the fulfillment that I got from being a nurse practitioner from coaching, just helping others and, supporting a healthy lifestyle. So the transition was hard, but also coaching kind of helped me ease into it. I will say compression boots were a huge help at that point because I'm someone who has to be busy, and when I put them on, I would turn it on for an hour and it forced me to sit on the couch. So if you're someone who can't relax, compression boots are great for forcing that upon you. But yeah, that goes to the last question. Recovery is so key. So I think I just had to learn to slow down and know that that was part of the success, or was going to lend to success in my training.
If you could do a triathlon anywhere in the world, where would it be? What is your dream
location?
race?
Ooh, I would say right now, because it's top of mind, my dream location is Nice, France, because I've qualified for the World Championships in 2024. So I'll be heading there next September to race, and I'm truly excited. It's a really hilly course, so a lot of good climbing, which I adore, but also a lot of kind of technical descending, which is something I need to work on. So I'm excited to challenge myself to get better at that between now and then. So Nice, France, I'm coming for you, September 2024.
If you could invent a fourth triathlon discipline, what would it be?
What would it be? My fourth? I've never heard that question. I love it so much. Gosh, the fourth thing. Well, the joke in triathlon is that fueling is the fourth discipline because, truly, you have to stay so on top of it. So I guess it would be that. But if you had to do one more thing at the end and it had to be a sort of exercise, my husband always jokes it should be playing 18 holes of golf. Such a different speed, such a different focus. So if you can play golf well after that, I don't think that's what I'd choose, but I'll copy him and I'll say that.
How do you manage the demands of a professional triathlon career alongside other aspects of your life, such as your coaching or family?
Yeah, I think that that's something I actually really value, and what that is just creating balance in my life. I think that's one of the things that allows me to train at the intensity and the focus that I do, is that I don't only focus on my training. I really have other things in my life that are really important to me. So just creating that balance and making sure that the training isn't everything, because in the end of the day there's so much other stuff in your life. So I make sure that my training is fun and that I enjoy it, but that I take it seriously, and I make sure that when I'm not training, I am spending time with the people I love and doing other things I enjoy. So yeah, I'm a broken record about it, but balance.
So coming back to that question, outside of training, what are some fun things you like to do? What are your hobbies?
Hobbies outside of training. That's tough because really triathlon was my hobby, and I'm fortunate enough to have been able to make my hobby my full-time job. But, you know, being active is my hobby, really. So I also love to ski. I like to play golf. I like to hang out with my husband and my family. They're incredibly important to me. I like to cook and bake, which is great as a triathlete because I have to eat a lot. So that helps. And yeah, I like to hang out with my friends, be social, and recover, which is also helpful.
Was quitting your job as a nurse practitioner to becoming a full-time athlete and coach scary?
Very, very scary. I questioned my decision a lot. It actually took me a while to make the full transition to becoming pro. I could have done it earlier, but I just wanted to be really sure about my decision. One of the things that made it scarier is that right when I decided to leave my job, I actually had a really bad race. I didn't perform well. I got slightly injured the day before it, and then I was like, what if I'm just a injured athlete? I didn't have fun, and I really started to question whether I'd made the right decision and whether I'd be able to kind of hang with the pros. And then I think the beauty of that is that other races happened and I was able to perform more to how I wanted. And so honestly, starting my career in that scary way of questioning it and then kind of overcoming that and then having results I was proud of made those results all that much more special when they did occur. And now I can look back and be really proud that I took that risk and that on myself, and got over that scary time.
How did you feel becoming a pro on your first race?
Shocked, honestly, totally shocked, and excited, and then I wanted to back it up. So I signed up for my next race immediately.
Well, third time's a charm now, right?
Yeah.
How does it feel crossing the finish line?
It feels so good, so much relief. At that point, you are so tired. And then it totally just depends on how the race went. I've had races where I crossed the finish line and truly I've almost felt regret because you're like, oh, I know I could have done better and now that day is done. And I can't go back and redo it. But I've also had days when I cross the finish line and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was the best experience of my life. And now I want to go back and do it again because it was the best experience of my life. So the finish line feeling is such a special one, but it's also kind of an inconsistent one depending on how you do. And I think that's what makes us keep wanting to go back for more.
Someone asked in the question box, how do you overcome mental barriers with such a high intensity training?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I just try to remember why I'm doing this because things are going to get hard, but that's kind of why I love it, to challenge myself and to push myself into that discomfort. I think also when it comes to training, the reason you're training is to perform well on race day. So if you can tackle those mental barriers in your training, then the hope is that you can handle anything that comes to you on race day. So oftentimes during my training, I really envision the race, which is why I love always having a race on the schedule and something to look forward to because that motivates me. And honestly, recently I start thinking about my competition and how they're probably putting in the work. So I better be putting in the work and then some. So yeah, look within yourself what motivates you, but then also if you can get over it now, you can get over it in the future.
So I'm definitely, obviously not a triathlete at all, but I've heard that some people go through some cycle of depression or some type of sadness after they run. So what is that about and how can you kind of combat that from happening?
Yeah, so they call it the PostRace Blues, and I've definitely had it. The reason it is, and I'm sure people of all different sports can relate to this, bodybuilding as well, you work so long and so hard preparing for this single day. So much work, so much time. and then the day kind of happens and it's done. I equate it to almost like post-Christmas letdown. So how do I deal with it? I try to remember that, one, there's going to be other races, but two, all the hard work was put in, and that's setting me up for future success, not just that one race, whether it went well or went poorly. And then I personally do really dumb things. I always get my nails painted after races. I always get my hair cut. I set up a dinner date with my husband. And I, just do things that I love doing besides triathlon, sort of for the week after, just to kind of get over it and not get over it, but deal with the blues and recenter myself. But it is truly normal and I think natural and understandable because you work so hard towards something and then it's done.
How do you structure your training regimen to balance the 3 disciplines of swimming, cycling, and running?
I hired a coach to do that. So Natasha Vandermerva is my coach, and she's the one who structures all of it. So I just get to wake up and see what's on the schedule and then hopefully perform well.
Does your training and nutrition differ between your competitive season versus your off season?
Yeah, it does, mainly because in my off season I'm not training as many hours or maybe not as much intensity. And so when I'm in season, I'm being very specific about meeting, getting enough carbs in because I typically have a few more sessions left for the day and I need to make sure that I'm set up for it. But when I'm in an off season, I'm maybe not doing as much for that day, so I'm not taking in as much. I also, to be honest, try to do more like whole foods in off season. So like put a banana next to my bike or something instead of a gel, just so I'm maybe not constantly taking in those sort of fake sugars. But I will say something I learned this off season is that I was maybe not fueling as well for certain workouts, and I noticed it. I was just more tired. So I think that goes to show how important that is in off season and in season, just making sure that you're fueled well to perform.
All right, well, the last question, just a way to wrap it up. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to anyone who wants to start their journey as a triathlete?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of twofold. That consistency is key with triathlon and really anything you do in your life. So keep showing up, and there's going to be days that are really good, and there's going to be days that are average, and there are going to be days that are bad. But as long as you keep showing up on average, it's going to come out well for you. And I think that one of the things that drives people to be able to be consistent is to enjoy what they're doing. So truly have fun with it, enjoy it. You can put pressure on yourself and want to get the most out of yourself. That's totally normal. But if it gets to be too much pressure and it's not enjoyable, then you're not going to want to show up and you're not going to be consistent. So number one piece of advice is have fun. And that's it for this episode of Raw Truth. Thanks for watching and have a good one.